Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to our 13th annual panel discussion. Let me take this opportunity to tell you of my experience on my first visit to Istanbul some 5 years ago. We were using a local tour guide. It was a Friday. He mentioned to me that he would like to be excused at a certain hour to attend to a personal matter and would rejoin us. What he did not say was that he needed to attend prayers. I understood that to him, religion was a personal matter. That brings me to the topic of today's discussion between our eminent panelists. The topic before us today is one that has taken center stage in our democracy. Our panelists will think through the topic. Religion is a personal matter, personal or otherwise. It is certainly polemical. I'm sure our panelists will help us think through this complex and multi-layered theme this evening. The discussion will be moderated by Ms. Barkha Dutt, a pioneer in Indian television journalism who currently runs her own digital news channel, Mojo Story. She's also an opinion columnist. She has won many national and international awards, including the Padma Shri. Our panelists, Mr. Javed Akhtar is an all-time great screenwriter, lyricist, and poet. He has been a member of the Rajya Sabha. He has won 5 national film awards and is a recipient of the Padma Bhushan. Mr. Shrapan Dasgupta is a journalist, politician, and writer on politics and history. He has been a member of the Rajya Sabha and is a recipient of the Padma Bhushan. He is a member of the BJP National Executive. Professor Madhu Keshwar is an academic, an author, and is the co-founder of the acclaimed journal Manashi. Mr. Ruchir Joshi is a writer, filmmaker, and columnist. His notable works include the novel The Last Jet Engine Laugh and his film on bowels, Agaro Mile. I can say without any hesitation that the evening looks very promising, and I hand over the proceedings to Ms. Barkha Dutt to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. You can all hear me at the back? Okay. So my job is very easy this evening, at least for the first 1 hour. I have to just sit back like all of you and hear our 4 speakers this evening talk about the proposition before us. This is not a debate, but it is still a proposition. Religion is a personal matter. I wondered if there should be a question mark at the end of that or a full stop. And I'd be curious to see how you form your response to this question, because I do think it's a question, at the end of the hour and a half that we have with all of you. Just as an opening thought, it doesn't look possible for religion to be a personal matter, no matter where we turn. Religion is part of our politics, it's part of our family arguments, it's part of our faith, it's part of our culture, it's part of our festivals, it's part of our election planning and strategy. Religion is everywhere, so how can it possibly be personal? That's a question. And I think that our speakers this evening, all of them extremely distinguished, will tackle it in different ways. And I look forward to then getting into a deeper conversation with them after we have their opening comments. Each speaker will have between 10 to maximum of 15 minutes to make their points. They can speak for less if they should so choose, so that's always very rare with argumentative Indians. And after that, I will open the conversation and we'll hopefully get more in-depth into things. And we also look forward, hopefully, to having some questions from all of you in the audience. So without any further ado, is religion a personal matter? Can religion be a personal matter? Should religion be a personal matter? 3 questions to frame the conversation this evening. Javed Akhtar, we'd like to start with you. Can we have a big round of applause to welcome Javed Saab to be our opening speaker?
Thank you very much, Barkha. And good evening, everybody. Is religion a personal matter? That reminds me of a line of a Urdu poet, Shahriyar. कब ऐसा हुआ था? बात ये आखिर कब की है? When religion, in which millennium, which century, which decade, on which day religion was a personal matter? I don't know. It cannot be. It is not and it cannot be. It is against the nature of the beast. You know, every religion, at the moment, being an atheist, I am not getting into the illogic or irrational or absurd beliefs of different religions. That is set aside. But religion offers you, beside all the superstitions, certain code of moral, certain code of conduct. A difference between right and wrong, according to that particular religion, good and bad, noble and evil, and so on. So obviously, this makes, if you are a believer, creates your code of moral, your code of conduct, and anybody who doesn't follow this code of conduct, this code of moral, obviously that person is wrong. Now, another thing which religion has is faith. That once you have accepted, there is no difference, now no argument, you have to believe without any rational logic, evidence, witness, this is it. A belief which has nothing like witness, argument, rational logic, that is called faith. Faith is devoid of all this. So it means you have been given a code of moral, you have been given a code of conduct, and then you have been asked not to analyze it or not to question it, because that is faith. This makes you a very vulnerable person, because where you have totally surrendered your mind and your rationale, you are giving an opportunity to some opportunist to use this weakness. This is God was doing it. You see, God was removing my name. It will be exploited. First of all, in society, you will have certain morality, certain code of conduct. You will look at people who don't agree with you. They are outsiders. People who agree with this code of moral and code of conduct are your people. They are on your side. First of all, it divides you like this. Then, because you have faith, a blind spot in your personality, that will be exploited by some opportunists, some politician, some ambitious and unscrupulous person. And history is a witness to it. I mean, the conquerors, the invaders of different places, and not only in our country, all over the world, they used religion for their own personal ambitions. And the foot soldier was the believer. But the man who was leading the army was not a believer. And we have seen some very good examples in last 100 years of India, that it is exploited by not only the believers, but even the atheists and non-believers also exploit this and bring it in the society. So it is not only culture, it is not only tradition, but the fact is the politics, the struggle for power. Religion has always been used and always be used, because that is the soft spot. That is the blind spot of an average person. So why won't an opportunist exploit it? It cannot be. On one hand, because of your own morality, on the other hand, your blindness. These two things make it a public affair. And it was always a public affair. It was always a socio-political problem, and it is even today. Thank you.
Okay, you took less than your allotted time, which is quite rare for someone as expansive as you. So hopefully we'll have time to talk further in the conversation. Hopefully. All right. Next up is Madhu Kishwar, pioneering journalist, co-founder of Manushi, extremely fiercely individualistic in her articulation of opinion, and I'm sure we'll hear some of that now. Madhu, it's over to you.
For my opening remarks, I prepared a written statement just so that I stay within time, and I don't make loose statements which are prone to be misunderstood, since I tend to be very politically incorrect. Is religion a private matter? No believing religionist is likely to accept this proposition that religion can ever be a private matter. So the matter really has to be decided by those who profess and follow religions, not by you and me. There are three major faith traditions in the world today that fall in the category of religion, namely Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. By contrast, Hindu Dharma does not fit into the category of religion, which does not mean that it is a personal matter alone. Now, any religious grouping is organized around certain principles, shared beliefs, a shared moral universe, a notion of how you relate the divine with human society. And the essential features of any religion are those that we are talking about, namely Christianity and Islam and Judaism, though we won't dwell on Judaism today for special reasons. It has a commandment-giving text which is considered infallible, Quran or Bible. They're supposed to be infallible words of God. A clear-cut command structure to issue diktats, the Pope, the bishops, the imams. Belief in the one and only true God who severely punishes those who owe allegiance to or tolerate false and satanic gods. Unconditional belief in and obedience to the Prophet who was chosen by God or Allah to carry his message to mankind. Initiation rituals such as baptism for Christians and circumcision for Muslims. In Islam, apostates, that is those who repudiate the central teachings of their religion, deserve death, no less. In Christianity, the mildest punishment for apostasy is excommunication. It is not enough to believe in the Prophet or Jesus Christ. Conversion of heathens and kafirs through means fair or foul is an essential feature of Christianity and Islam. These two religions treat all those who do not accept their belief system as mortal enemies to be vanquished. Islam has the most elaborate system for defining the rules of Allah to decide what is wajib conduct or acts considered haram. And the Sharia, as those of you who know about Islam would know, that there are protocols to be followed in every situation in life, be it eating, defecating, bathing, having sex, saying prayers, fighting wars, or any other human situation you're likely to encounter. The most desirable goal of a Muslim's life is to become a martyr fighting in Islamic holy war against the infidels for expanding the domain of Islam by winning over territories under non-Muslim control. And of course, protection and defense of Ummah, the worldwide brotherhood of Muslims, is a necessary duty of every Muslim. Given all this, where is the scope for treating religion as a private affair? Because there are clear-cut do's and don'ts involved. Now, Hindu Dharma, by contrast, I'm not saying is a private affair, but it does not qualify to be a religion because it has no foundational text which issues commandments to be followed without question by all for all times to come. Hindu Shastras and Smritikars emphasize that codes of morality have to be time, culture, and situation specific. There are no universal mandates, but only certain guiding values. The foundational belief of Sanatana Dharma is that every living being, including plants, reptiles, animals, rivers, mountains, are manifestations of the same divine force that energizes and moves the universe. Hindu Dharma has no centralized authority structure. So if I don't obey this, that, or the other ritual, no Shankaracharya can come and say, we will do this to you, we will shoot you, or we will sever your head. It allows for diversity of social practices, rituals, ways of being, ways of worship as well. You can choose your own rituals, do them whichever way you like. You can even be an atheist and yet be a Hindu. It accepts diversity of beliefs effortlessly and gives you the freedom to discard any and all sacred scriptures. You can be a Hindu and say, I don't believe in the Ramayana, or Mahabharata is not sacred for me. You can disown all deities. You can also have a self-chosen Ishta Devata or Devi. Like we worship the broom deity, Manushi Swachanarayani. She's a broom-wielding goddess. Some other day we'll talk about what she represents. or decide to have your own means of connecting to the divine directly through simple meditation. You can say, I don't believe in going to the temple, doing jap, mantra part, or anything. And unlike Islam and Christianity, which focus on collective goals, I think this is very important, not just individual well-being, the focus of Hindu Dharma is individual moksha. The freedom sounds good. I mean, all this when I said, it may give you the impression that I'm saying, oh, how good it is to have these values. But till we consider the fact that Hindu Dharma and civilization have been on a decline ever since it faced Islamic invasions, starting 8th century, followed by European invaders owing allegiance to Christianity. Before the advent of Islam, Hindu civilization had spread from Iran to Japan, Cambodia, etc. Today, it is shrunken beyond recognition, and within the territory called India, there are countless Islamic enclaves as well as Christian provinces that are openly hostile to Hindus and also to the whole idea of Indian nationhood. Hindus are shrinking because, unlike Christians and Islamists, Hindus are not oriented towards increasing their flock by converting people, while the main thrust of Islam and Christianity is to be perpetually in expansive mode in order to rule the world. That is why tiny hordes of Islamic and Christian invaders from faraway lands were able to subjugate and convert whole societies in a short time. Remember the famous words of Desmond Tutu. When the missionaries came, I'm quoting, when the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. They said, let us pray. We closed our eyes. When we opened them, we had the Bible and they had the land. The same story was repeated in North America, Latin America, Australia, and India. This did not happen because the missionaries were serving some personal agenda. Imagine the devotion and commitment it takes to leave your home and hearth, travel thousands of miles to go live in the jungles of Africa, Latin America, or Nagaland and Jharkhand among unknown people in order to plant churches, make the non-believers sever their ancestral roots and abandon their old faith traditions. Such missions could never be undertaken if Christians saw their religion as a personal matter. Similarly, one cannot help but be awestruck by the zeal of Islamists who took hazardous journeys on horseback across thousands of miles to conquer India in order to bring Kafirs into the fold of Islam. Starting with Muhammad bin Qasim in 8th century, who subjugated Sindh and Multan, to Aibaks, to Khiljis, Tughlaqs, up to the last of Mughals. They all invaded and established their rule in Hindu India, not just to gain personal wealth, but to turn Kafir-ruled lands into Dar al-Islam. That is why they felt duty-bound to destroy every temple they could in order to demonstrate to the Kafirs the superiority of Islam and the weakness of Hindu Dharma. For instance, Bhaktiar Khilji burnt down Nalanda with its 9 million manuscripts and slaughtered thousands of monks, not because he had a personal grudge against the scholars at Nalanda, but because he saw their very existence as an affront to Allah, since the mandate of his mazhab was to destroy kufr. Those ancient books did not even abuse Islam, the books, the 9 million manuscripts that he burnt. But his mazhab told him the world needed only one book, namely the Quran, the rest only corrupted mankind. So it takes a lot of courage to go by that conviction, And Hindus have had to face the combined might of Islam and Christianity for over 1200 years, but never taken the trouble to understand either Islam or Christianity or develop a collective response to the challenges posed by these two great religions. On the one hand are the Abrahamic religions, who consider all those outside their religious folds as enemies to be conquered or wiped out. On the other hand, are Hindus who altogether lack Shatrubodh even when they are on the verge of extinction. Worse still, they fall prey to pious platitudes like Allah, Ishwar, Tero Naam, and whatnot. They do not even, Hindus are foolish enough not even to bother to check out whether followers of Allah or Christ are willing to endorse this noble sentiment. Such delusional pieties have convinced Hindus that it does not really matter whether you pray in a mosque or church or a mandir. In short, secularized Hindus neither know their own faith, nor do they understand the mainsprings behind the power of Christianity or Islam. Let me illustrate this with an example. Of late, there has been much hullabaloo about halalonomics. How the Islamists have captured the meat market while Hindus have remained oblivious of it. A lot of Hindus are complaining about it, and it's an issue being taken up also in the Christian world. This is because if Islamists have been able to do that, think of what it took to arrive at that position. This is because even a 5-year-old Muslim child will refuse to eat pork or non-halal meat because he is convinced that if he violates that taboo, he will earn Allah's wrath and burn in hellfire. Even his own family will punish him severely for non-compliance. He cannot get away by saying, this is my individual choice. So what if I eat pork? That's what I like. No, that's not allowed. By contrast, most Hindus neither know the difference between halal and jhatka meat, nor care about it. They do not boycott restaurants or meat shops that serve only halal meat. And since a Hindu faces no social consequences if he eats beef or halal, for many, eating beef has become a fashion statement, a certificate of liberalism and secularism, even though killing cows or eating beef is considered an unforgivable sin in Hindu Dharma. The consequence is there for all to see. It is rare to find jhatka meat shops even in Hindu majority neighborhoods or find jhatka meat served in Hindu-owned restaurants. Muslims have acquired near total monopoly over the very lucrative meat industry through careful planning and hard work, and we must admire that, as well as allied industries such as that of leather goods. Since Muslim slaughterhouses employ only Muslims, Kafirs have been effectively driven out of the meat as well as the leather industry. So, I mean, does it tell you that religion is a personal thing? Just this one taboo about halal meat, not eating non-halal meat, has led to this entire world of economic empowerment through managing that taboo, not just for yourself, but imposing it also on others. Why just meat? The Islamic clergy as well as political leaders work together to convince Muslims not to buy any product which is not halal certified. As a result, even Haldiram, Patanjali, Cadbury's, cosmetic manufacturers, and even dal and rice suppliers have been forced to seek and pay for halal certification. By training the followers of Islam to surrender individual freedom at the altar of their common mazhabi interests, Islam has deservingly emerged as the most formidable religious community on this earth. Same with interfaith marriages. As part of their calculation that demography is destiny, Muslims are not only encouraged but supported by their religious authorities to marry non-Muslims, provided they can convert the person to Islam. On the other hand, a Muslim woman marrying a kafir invites sure death, if not for herself, then surely for the man who has dared to marry her. By denying individual choice and freedom, the Muslim community ensures that it maintains communal solidarity and acquires numerical domination over non-Muslims. And I'm talking not just about India, but globally. Christianity is also on the decline in Europe and America because the Western democracies have adopted individual choice and freedom as their creed. Therefore, fewer and fewer people in Western democracies are willing to accept the discipline of the church. However, the collective aspiration of the global Christian power networks to dominate the world, that's their aspiration, like Islam, despite many internal divides, that global aspiration, the collective aspiration of Christianity, is putting its might at the service of exporting Christianity to Asian countries, including India, where they are producing a very militant brand of Christianity, which is as determined to convert India into a holy land of Christ as are Muslims determined to convert Bharat into a Dar al-Islam. To conclude, religions are a collective enterprise. That's the nature of the beast, as Javed said. And they stay powerful only so long as they can persuade their members to surrender individual freedoms in favor of collective might. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. I think there's several talking points that emerge from that intervention, and hopefully we'll get to them. One of the thoughts that occurs to me before I call Swapan on stage is, what about religion and politics? Even if there isn't a sort of codified faith, what if there is a politics at the heart of creating a religious identity? So a political Hindu, a political Muslim. And who better to talk about that than somebody who's worn two hats, as a journalist and as a politician, Swapan Dasgupta. Let's welcome him to the podium.
You know, it's always a very daunting proposition to speak after such an erudite, scholarly presentation as Madhu did. But for the moment, I'm reeling with the shock of trying to figure out what exactly is halal dal and halal chawal. I hope I'll get a conclusive answer at some time. You know, when it comes to religion and politics, I'm always tempted to invoke what Alistair Campbell, who is a press advisor to Tony Blair, he was asked one complex question about something about the church or the other. And his answer, which remains etched in my memory, is, we don't do God. Now, the point is, the person who framed this proposition had something of a similar assumption. He or she probably had a degree of exasperation that there's too much of religion going on. We need to get out of it. There's elections coming. Oh, there'll be an undercurrent of religion. Everything, the country is going to the dogs and religion is one of them. It's that sort of an attitude. Religion, well, it's your problem. You make it your personal affair. Let everyone stick to their little corner, create a puja room and stay there. That's the fundamental assumption. If everyone stuck to their puja room, then we wouldn't have a problem of something in Ayodhya. If everyone stuck to their puja room, we wouldn't have a creeping problem in Varanasi. If everyone stuck to their puja room and believed what is there, we wouldn't have these complex disputes about halal meat either. Unfortunately, life is a little more complex than that. When you talk about faith, and that's that I assume is synonymous at times with religion. When you talk about faith, nobody's faith is absolutely individual. It cannot be. What we are, in terms of our faith, in terms of our relationship to what we believe is the divine, etc., or even if we don't believe in that, if we are an atheist, even that, it's to a very large extent something we inherited from our parents. People say, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, everything. Most of them are because I was born one. There's nothing more complicated than that. I mean, more simple than that. Most people were just born that. So it's inherited to a very large extent. Now, the type of faith they have is again determined by their immediate community. And maybe to a larger extent to global currents. There could be, or not. But very little of the inputs that goes into one's individual faith, unless you happen to be an extreme scholar of something, happens to be very personal. It is, by definition, something which we've got from a collective. And how we can shape that collective, how that collective can be used for a proper, for a more benign purpose, rather than a malevolent purpose, is really what society is all about. It's really the quest of politics. Now you may say, why should people fight over sacred space? Why should there be an idea called sacred space, which is at the root of much of the problems here? Ayodhya, it's really a matter of sacred space. If you believe that there is no such thing as a sacred space, then there is no issue. Then you can create a Ram Mandir here. But people do believe in sacred spaces. Sacred space is even sanctified by the Sanatan Dharma. If I'm taking Madhu's thing and being rather circumspect in using the word Hindu, although it's a more common usage these days. There is something called Pran Vidya, which means that the force which comes out of the ground at a particular place is equally valid. Now, there might be other contesting beliefs, etc. Now the issue comes around that should we believe, like most extreme secularists do, that this is a force which is on the retreat. That this is a force, religious faith is something which is not kosher. People who are respectable, like Nehru used to believe, if you are respectable, you don't really go in for this mumbo jumbo. The point is, we do go in for mumbo jumbo. All of us go in for mumbo jumbo in some way or the other. And more important, now, as we realize that India is unique in itself and has a self-confidence of its own, that we can afford to call ourselves Bharat, there is merit and virtue in what you all were calling mumbo jumbo in the past. That the basis on which this nation was crafted is, to a very large extent, has an underpinning of faith. Now, I won't say that faith is exclusively one of Sanatan Dharma. It cannot be. We will be obliterating parts of our history if we say that. But to say that it is born out of purely secular principles, that we are a creature of the Constitution, that India or Bharat came into being in 1950 after lots of people in the Constituent Assembly came and signed that copybook, is being really quite facetious. Because it forgets that what we are actually predated 1950. 1950 is only a small landmark in our journey. It's a very small, it's an important landmark, but it's a small landmark. That if we forget our inheritance, and our inheritance is right, you cannot always codify it. It's not possible, and I think it would be wrong. I think one of the biggest problems which one of the new favorites, icons, Savarkar had when he talked about Hindutva was that rather than seeing it as an impulse, he tried to codify it. And that's wrong. And he got it wrong. I believe he got it wrong. But the fact remains that today what we are is to a very large extent based on that underpinning, which is to a very large extent Hindu. This is why when a temple gets consecrated, there is a huge outpouring of people who you didn't even know were religious. They are not religious in the classic sense of the term. Or their religion may have nothing to do with faith in Ram. But that's not the issue. For them, it was a recovery of history. It was a recovery of something that a lot of people thought had gone forever. And it was a recovery of an identity. And that identity, some people may like it, some people may dislike it. I personally call myself a political Hindu. And I'm quite happy with that. Because I believe that more than getting involved in the faith dimension, I see how much this inheritance can be used to bind our country together and to give a new direction and a purpose and a new impulse to Bharat. And that's why, for me, the question of it being an entirely personal issue just does not arise. Thank you very much.
The intriguing thing in the conversation thus far is almost everybody has agreed that religion cannot be personal, is not personal, but nobody's quite addressed whether it should be personal. I wonder if Ruchir will touch upon that. But as he walks up to the podium, I was also struck by the memory of a 1970s feminist slogan, Western feminist slogan, the personal is the political. So even if religion is personal, can politics be far behind? Ruchir.
Sorry, can everyone hear me? Is this microphone, am I the correct distance away from the microphone? Yeah? Okay, great. Oh boy, good evening everyone. Jai Kolkata. I don't know where to begin because if you disagree with three such hefty-minded people, I think it gets very interesting. You know, I had earlier thought I would kind of agree with Javed Saab at least, if not with Shopon and Madhviji. But I find that I have differences to pick with all three of them, which makes me kind of happy because I like to be on the wrong side of the argument, shall we say. Let's start with a bit of an autobiography, if I may. I am a Gujarati. I am a Gujarati from a background which would be considered Vaishnav, Brahman, Bhatt Mewada, Gotra, etc. because I know this from my parents and my grandparents, various people. I'm also born and brought up in Kolkata. I was born in Kamak Street and I grew up in Lake Gardens and now I live in Minto Park. So I'm 64 years old. I'm as Kolkataiya, a citizen of Bengal, as anybody else, from Mamata Banerjee to anybody else in this city or this state. My parents were part of what we used to call the Ladat, the struggle, the Gandhian-led struggle for independence. They were from Ahmedabad. They were Gujaratis. And they fought as young people in the movement. They were totally part and parcel of the non-violent but extremely dedicated, committed movement for independence. From their teenage years till the time that we gained independence and after independence, even when they moved to Calcutta, they were both very, very committed Gandhians, very, very committed Nehruvians, and very, very committed Hindus. And at the same time, the Hinduism I was brought up in is very different from what I'm seeing today. I don't recognize it. And if someone tells me that this is what the mainstream is believing in and this is what the masses believe in, you know what? Sorry, don't believe it. It's a lie. Okay? I will expose to you and lay out to you why I think it's a lie, but I'm coming to that slowly. The Hinduism I was brought up in, it was very clear to me that what the Bengalis outside believed in with meat eating and Ma Kali and Durga was a different thing. What the UP North Indians believed in, with their belief of Hinduism was connected, but again, it was a different thing. These were a connected series of faith, connected series of dharmas, but each was unique and tasted different as our cuisine, right? And I was never brought up to believe that Islam or Christianity are wrong or dirty or somehow to be looked down upon. My mother had a distaste for all non-vegetarians, whether they were Bengalis or Punjabis or Muslims or Christians or Buddhists. She was a vegetarian through and through. My father was a vegetarian who, when I told him I eat meat, just said, don't tell your mother. I believe in truth. I don't believe in lying, but lie to her about this because it'll upset her. So all my life I lied to my mother that I was a non-vegetarian, beef-eating, pork-eating, chicken-eating man from a Gujarati Vaishnava background. Now, this is what Calcutta gives me, right? And I grew up, and there is a great reason to be critical of not of Nehru so much as what happens after Nehru. There's a great reason to be critical of what the Brahmin-led CPM for 34 years gives us. There's a lot of things to reject in there. There are a lot of things to question in there. But the one thing I'm thankful for that CPM, and for that post-Nehruvianism as well, is that they at least did not divide us on the basis of Hindu-Muslim, Hindu-Christian, this kind of absolute, deeply toxic poison, which is unfortunately being now dressed up in very nice words by people here on this stage. And why only blame them? It's being dressed up by the media, it's being dressed up by our leaders, so-called, it's being dressed up even by the Congress, which does soft Hindutva. It's being dressed up by Mamata Banerjee when she panders to the Hindu temples and as well as the mullahs. Everyone is kind of falling into this black hole, this lie of a certain definition of religion and a certain definition of Shraddha. Continuing with the autobiography, I was never, I go to Ahmedabad, my family, by the way, are all committed Modi bhakts. Modi ji to hamare mate Bhagwan che. Okay, so I have to deal with that at lunch, right? And I say, maybe your God is not my God, and I wait for the day he stops being the God of the 30% or 36% who are voting for him right now. One day their eyes will open and he will fall like all false gods do. They are committed to, they say, but you're a communist because you're from Bengal. Or they say, you basically must love Rajiv Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, you're a Congressite. I don't. If anyone has read my writings, they would see that I've been supremely critical of Indira Gandhi, of Rajiv Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, this whole bunch, right? They will see that I've been critical of the CPM. So this idea that if you oppose the current government or the current Hindutva, sort of these kind of film sets that are being put in front of us with little props at the back, these sticks on the hills, that therefore you must support either one party or the other. No. There I come to something called the difference between religion and Shraddha. How do you define religion? Religion is, again, an English word. Mazhab, okay. Dharma. These are different words with different valences, okay? So for me, I would rather talk about Shraddha. Shraddha in Bangla, Shraddha in Gujarati, Shraddha in Hindi, right? What do I learn about Shraddha? Am I an atheist? No. I would say perhaps, at least, I don't know who believes what on this stage, but I am saying I'm not an atheist. And all I'm saying is, it depends on which side of the bed I wake up on. Some days I feel like there can be nothing. How can God or any powerful entity allow what we are going through right now? The bombing of Gaza, what's happening to this country here, what's happening in other parts of the world, the huge cruelty and the kind of dismemberment of our environment. How can this be possible if there is a God or gods and goddesses? On the other hand, I feel, okay, maybe I'm not getting into something. Maybe my training in religion or my training in Shraddha and beliefs, etc., there's a subtle way, there's something that we will come around to some enlightenment or some kind of test from which we will emerge. Not me, not us alive here today, but humanity in future. Maybe there's a reason, I don't know. But the thing I come across in Bengal, the next thing that happens to me is I come across the Bauls. Now, you can say that, Hinduism has been under attack for 1,000 years. and it's been shrinking since Islam came, and religion is a collective endeavor or it is nothing. These are all questionable attitudes. These are questionable assertions. We've had the Baul tradition with us for 1,000 years. The Baul tradition comes together from a mixture of Bhakti Hinduism, Sufi Islam, and parts of Buddhism. It's a conglomerate of 3 different, at least, traditions, which grows, changes, mutates, and transfers across these 1,000 years. And what is that tradition? That tradition is basically set upon one thing. And it says something very simple and very dynamic, and people listen and respond to it. What is it? That do not believe in the priest, do not believe in the mullah, do not believe in the Buddhist monk. Believe only in yourself and your connection to what is up there. Okay, that is one of several traditions, dharma, shraddha, whatever you want to call it, which are part of this soil, which have grown out of this soil. And they have to be found all over the world. Wherever you have organized religion, whether you have religion, every time religion has been politicized, do not believe that this is the first time we are seeing the politicization of religion. The people who were ruling Bengal 1,000 years ago, which the Bauls rose up against, or 800 years ago, who they rose up against, there was a nexus between the Islamic rulers and the Brahminical priests. They were in cahoots with each other, just as the Hindutva right wing and the Islamic right wing need each other today to survive. Aap hai to hum hai, right? And that is something we must never forget. That this business about halal and this and that and all these kind of things about, oh my God, Hinduism khatre mein hai, Hindu dharm khatre mein hai. And they are saying Islam khatre mein hai. You look at the demographics in India, halal, how many times would a Muslim man need to have procreative activity with how many women to even begin to challenge the Hindu population level? I mean, who are you trying to explain this to? You know, halal dal, halal rice, I've never heard of it. I've lived in England for a long period of time. I've gone into shops there. Muslim shop owners are selling pork products and alcohol and dal and rice, and I've never seen any halal stamp on those things. Muslim people are buying it over there. And I've seen Hindu, Gujarati shopkeepers and also selling beef products and pork products and alcohol, and there's been, again, no halal, nothing. The moment you go out of this country and you go to America or England, you are a Paki, you're a brown person, and you may have risen, 1 or 2 may have risen to Prime Minister or Nikki Haley or something, but exceptions, okay? Basically, fundamentally, if you go out of this country and go to Europe, or go to any of the white countries, go to South America, they're not going to look at you and say, oh, you're Pakistani, oh, you're Indian, or oh, you're Hindu, or oh, you're Madrasi, oh, you're Calcutta, nothing. We are brown, okay? And we all look the same to them, and because we are, genetically or whatever. So this business of suddenly we have to protect Hinduism. What Hinduism? On the one hand, you say we can't call it a religion. It is not. It's a multiple series of belief systems. It's like a huge forest with multiple kinds of trees. And right now, this Hindutva fascism, this government and its apologists are trying to turn all the trees into one stand of eucalyptus trees, which will suck up the water from the ground and produce fruit or produce stuff only for the people who are planting those trees. And it'll kill us all. It'll destroy this country. So, to come back, the Bauls taught me a very important lesson. The lesson that they taught me was, you have to fight for your beliefs against the power that organizes and tells you what to believe and how to believe. Whether it is a priest, whether it is the police daroga, whether it is the politician, whether it is the mullah, whether it is a rich landowner. And they are all in cahoots, and the poor man, the poor woman, has to find her own way in his own way. The androgynous person has to find their way through this to achieving some kind of oneness with whatever they think runs the universe. Okay? There's a whole concept of Nitto Krishna and Chitto Krishna. I believe in that. The Nitto Krishna is the daily Krishna, the quotidian Krishna, and the Chitto Krishna is the higher Krishna. Now, to be able to conceptualize this, and you go into that, and you go into references from Islam, to references from Buddhism, references from the earth. You quote bicycle, torchlight. Everything comes in to this poetic kind of formulation of what existence is. So that is within me as well. Where did we arrive at the Constitution from? We arrived at the Constitution from many different routes. The first thing we did was, people can say that other people are not singing Vaishnava Vajan to Kehne Kahiye or whatever it is, but they were. I'm sorry, what Gandhi managed to do enough was to bring enough people of this country, or people who were living in this territory at that time, Hindus, Muslims, Christians together, and different kinds of Hindus, mind you. The Madrasi had nothing to do with the Bengali, had nothing to do with the North Indian at one level. And there was, if you find that some of you say कि यार ये तो मुसलमान है या ये तो हिंदू है, the kind of sort of sneering and distaste we have for वो तो Madrasi, वो तो Banga, वो तो Punjabi. I mean, we've heard it from all our older generations. ये तो Bengali है, that kind of thing is there not just religiously but ethnically as well. To bring all this stuff together, he does use religion. He uses Hindu faith, he uses Christianity, he uses Islam. And people gather together and shake the British Empire because he does. Nehru is an atheist, Gandhi is not. Patel is not clear whether he's an atheist or not. Maulana Azad and people may believe in a certain kind of Islam, I don't know. It varies, it's a varied bunch of people. Unlike today where you see a monoculture sitting at the top with one big tree and all these little plants around it at the center. There was a bunch of a team which brought us to that constitution. And when Ambedkar and people write that constitution, it is not that the constitution is saying that we haven't used religion or faith to arrive here. It is saying this is our survival map for the future. That if you want to survive as a country in a society, you can't have Manuvad. You can't have casteism. You can't pick and choose between Hindu and Muslim and Christian. All that stuff is your own problem. It may be collective. Yes, by all means, there can be Kumbh Mela, there can be namaz on the streets, there can be massive Buddhist festivals, there can be Christian festivals. Be collective when you want, but when it comes to being a member of society and being political, you have to put aside your religion and contribute to the country. Right? It sounds like a quaint idea. Nowadays, we've been forced to treat it as some kind of a secularism has become a dirty word. No, sorry. That is your survival mantra, and do not let's forget it. Okay? Now, as far as religion and faith is concerned, just to quickly the definition of sacred spaces. What are our sacred spaces? Is it temples? Is it a temple in a dodgy area where someone who's supposed to be Sarva Vyapi in all our souls and in all our insides, Ram, how does he have a birthplace, and how do you figure out that birthplace? Because somebody goes and places a statuette in the middle of a mosque. The archaeological foundations of that stuff are deeply dodgy, and they're lies from beginning to end. Do not believe it. I don't believe in this temple. This temple is a political propaganda piece for this government. And we should be ashamed, and future generations will be ashamed of this temple and of what is happening in the name of Ram, in the name of Krishna, in the name of Hinduism. Okay? With that, I will stop here and let's enter into a discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing, that I thought one of the ground rules was that we weren't going to be offensive about other people's faiths. I wish that had been adhered to. You might find it offensive. I find everything you said is offensive.
On that, okay, everybody wait. Can you all wait?
Also ill-informed.
Can you all wait? Now I think, 1 minute. Now let me also get a word in. I've heard all four of you very calmly. And I'm sure the audience has much to say, much to process. And I hope you're all feeling empathetic about how the difficult position I've been placed in, because I have to now moderate these four very, very varied, somewhat volatile, provocative interventions. So I'll start with you, Swapan. To my mind, it looks like the conversation or the question before us is not whether religion is personal or public, but what the role of the state is when it comes to reconciling a country with multiple religions. You said in your presentation that India was not born from sort of the idea of the constitution. There was a Hindu underpinning to it, if I heard you right. If India was not born from the idea of a constitution that sought to preserve and construct a country on the building blocks of our diversity, then are you saying that you agree with the two-nation theory?
There's a difference between statecraft and nationhood. I think one of the most elementary forms of political science would say. When you say a state has to be scrupulously neutral and equal to every single citizen of this country, regardless of their faiths, their political inclination, etc.
Yes.
However, nationhood is something else. Nationhood is not something which you codify. Nationhood is something which you find everywhere, which is there. Why, for example, do you inaugurate most things with a lamp? Why do you have those lamps?
Those are cultural.
No.
Those are cultural traditions.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to say. And these are cultural attributes. And in most cultural attributes, you will find that there is what might be loosely be called a religious dimension, a cultural dimension, because in India, culture and faith are never separated, right? Now, some people may say that the only thing that matters is an abstruse metaphysical rendering of the Upanishads. It's very trendy for people to say that. The only thing that matters is this highest form of metaphysical stuff called it. Now, for most people, it's really the Puranic religion, which, for most people, it's the Puranic religion. For most people, it's still debates and pravachans about Ramayana, about Mahabharata, and they will have continuous arguments about that.
But isn't it true that the Constitution, which the Prime Minister called his most holy book,
Yep.
This was the Prime Minister, right? Isn't it true that the Constitution has to have the overarching say on the idea of what the nation should look like, which is equal rights for all? What you're suggesting is somewhat different.
The Constitution tells us what are the rules of the game, what are the rules of public life must be regulated.
Yeah.
It will tell you this is the power of the center, this is the power of the states, you must have elections after every 5 years, you must have various things, certain rights and obligations, etc., pointed out. Beyond that, the Constitution cannot tell you what is going to be the mental framework of the Indian. It will not be able to tell you that this is what you should believe and this is not what you should believe.
Okay.
Right? So there are obvious inherent limits of the Constitution. Its importance should not be underplayed, but it is like telling you these are the rules of the game, but it doesn't tell you what is the spirit of the game.
And yet, Javed Saab, the Ram Mandir has come to us from the arbitration of the guardians of the Constitution. So there is a constitutional underpinning even to the Mandir. Please.
I was very short when I began because I was talking only about the proposition. That's why I was short. But I have realized that most of the time friends have spoken about everything except for the proposition. Swapan, what you are suggesting, it is worth thinking about, that this is a kind of new awakening, new realization of the identity, which is going to make this country one, the society one, and it will bring us together. You know, that is what Jinnah had suggested. Jinnah was talking about a religion where there is one prophet, one book, one Allah, and they made a country on that basis called Pakistan. Are they one? Are they living together with harmony, love, friendship? And you are suggesting that this awareness will make India one. Which India? India of UP and India of Tamil Nadu? They have made a mistake and they are repenting. Believe me. There is a huge population of
who's the
Pakistan.
they here?
The Pakistanis. Most of the Pakistanis are repentant then why it happened. You have not learned anything from them. Now after 75, 77 years, you want to make the same mistake. Go ahead. Religion cannot make people one. Religion can only divide people. Cannot. Nowhere religion has been able to bring. And then, Madhu, now, yeah, culture. The culture, then you don't know. You don't know that what kind of Urdu poetry Muslims have done on Krishna and Ram and Shiv. Muslim poets have written about Holi and Diwali. You don't know about the king of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah, who on Janmashtami used to dance on the streets of Lucknow in the garb of Krishnji, and the family of Wajid Ali Shah, the women used to become gopis and dance on the streets, and public used to watch them. He was not obviously suitable for Britishers, so they have painted him in a different manner. Now Kathak, Khayal, Thumri, these musics are being developed in Muslim courts. You say, it is said quite often, and even Madhu has said that these people, particularly Mughals, were Islamic people, and they were here to spread Islam. Islam bans pictures. You cannot make the image of a living being. What is Mughal art? It is nothing but faces. Kathak, where Kathak was developed, where Khayal was developed, where musicians like Tansen were patronized, or artists, there is a book, you must read it, Sanskrit in Mughal courts. How Mughal kings from Akbar to Shah Jahan, which was the peak period, we were the richest country in the world. You call them plunderers. You compare them with Britishers. Colonist has a capital which is out of the colony, and he takes the wealth and takes it out of the colony. What was the colony of Akbar? Where was his treasury? In Afghanistan, in Uzbekistan, in Turkmenistan. They were Indians. Jahangir and Shah Jahan had 75% blood of Rajputs because his mother and grandmother were Rajputnis. Suppose you say, oh, they used to marry Hindu women to spread Islam. Where is the grave of Akbar's wife, Harkabai, who is more known as Jodhabai? Is there any grave? Where is the grave of Shah Jahan's mother, Jagat Gosai? Her chhatri. Chhatri is made where the chita is burned, is near Allahabad. They were never converted. These people were Indians. They had totally severed their relationship from everywhere. And take historians from USA, from France, they have written that whatever correspondence they find of Mughal kings to the Central Asia, you can see that Mughal kings are only working for India's benefit because they were Indians. But anybody who is not... Acha, Hinduism is not a religion, you know. I have been informed. So whenever I'm sure that in any form where religion is mentioned, Madhu Kishwar must be leaving it blank because Hinduism is not a religion.
Let me bring her in now. Let me bring her in. I have questions to ask of you, but maybe in a moment. Madhu, Javed sir, एक minute. In your presentation, you spoke about how the Abrahamic religions have a codified, mandated, prescriptive behavior, and if you don't follow that, you are a kafir, you're a non-believer, you will be penalized. But in the same presentation, you said, please correct me if I'm wrong, that in Hinduism, eating beef is considered a sin. If Hinduism is a system of multiple beliefs, including the right to not believe, where does the idea of sin come from?
First, let me handle some of the issues that were raised by Javed. Javed Bhai, I can supply you a lot of historical evidence, not written by me, but established historians, including M.A. Khan's book, for example, who describes in detail the amount of wealth that was being sent from India by each of these Mughals as tribute to the Arab countries. I can give you details. I can give you, not my details. I haven't cooked them up. M.A. Khan ki kitab hai. Dusra, when Shah Jahan shifted his capital from Agra to Delhi, his clear-cut farman was that all temples had to be destroyed and mosques put in their place, which is why in Chandni Chowk, even 19th, early 20th century records point out that Hindu temples were so shrunken. People, if you go to Chandni Chowk, you find only 2 big temples, but they weren't there at that time as big temples. Gali kuncho mein ghar ke andar chote chote mandir hote the, all were destroyed. And I'm not saying it. These are historical testimonies given by reputed people. So firstly, let us not, see, we cannot build harmony by lying about the past and making,
No, the
which is
problem
not
is
to
that
say
any
that there were
historian-
no Rahims, which is not to say that some of the things you said are not true, but to say that they were not converted, that they were not into conversion mission. I mean, it's so, there's such ample evidence. Either we should have a session with your bringing your evidence and me bringing I'm a student of history, and therefore I take all this seriously. I'm not,
Yes, 1 minute, yeah.
now coming to Barkha's.
And I want to add a point there. You mentioned a lot of things that were wrong in the orthodoxy of the other faiths, but you did not talk about the caste system at all.
Wait, did
Two questions.
in 12 to 14 minutes, can you cover everything? No.
Okay.
Can you cover every problem or even definitionally the diversity of Hindu faith traditions? No, which is why I said you can do any number of things and still remain Hindu, including eat beef, and yet there are communities that do. So it's not to say, but large, for example, his parents believed in not eating beef. He decided to abandon. No punishment followed, right?
Does he become
The
less
fact
of a Hindu?
No, it's not my, who am I to
I'm
certify?
asking.
I am not there to certify. All I can say is a very ill-informed person, whether Hindu or Christian or whatever, atheist or secular. I mean, full of platitudes, not based on facts. To me, the important part is this. Not that there aren't Muslims who are not very inclusive, individuals included, like Javed Bhai. The point that I'm trying to make is the openly declared agenda of Islam and Islamists. It's not my saying, which is Mission Ghazwa-e-Hind, for example, with regard to India, which is to say all of Hindustan has to be converted to Islam. I'm not saying it. PFI has even put in its manifesto. They've even now given a date, 2047, by which time they are ready to convert. They are saying it, not Madhu Kishwar. The point is, are Islamists or Muslims willing to challenge it and saying, no, stop conversions, let people be. If that is not an agenda, then why conversions? And if there were no conversions, there would be no fight.
Okay.
There would be no tension.
I just want to-
Similarly,
May I just share
planting churches. Why would you plant churches in areas where there weren't any Christians? And the strategies that are used to win over converts. The point that I'm trying to make is this, unless you handle this question, how has the demography of India changed? After all, what is now Pakistan, which is where my parents came from, even at the time of partition, they were nearly 30%.
Can I just read out just one data point, and then I do have questions for Ruchir as well. I'm reading from S.Y. Qureshi's book, The Population Myth. S.Y. Qureshi was the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. He's asked which community is the most polygamous in India, because you've spoken so much about the demographic change that could come. Tribal communities have 16% polygamy, Hindus 5.8%, Muslim 5.7%. Just a data point.
See, I don't know what you mean by polygamy. If it's
The practice of more than one
simultaneously,
spouse.
simultaneously having 4 wives, if that's what polygamy, maybe not. Not many Muslims can even afford 4 wives.
Yes.
But you can divorce and have sequential. But that's not the point.
That all of us can do.
The point I'm making is simply this. You don't see any demographic change, for example, in Kashmir, which was the fountainhead
I'll
of
come into
Hindu
you. 1 minute.
civilization. Today, there are no Hindus left. You don't see any demographic
I am
change.
only
Hello,
going
hello,
by.
hello.
I'm
You
No,
don't see
no.
any
Okay, Javed
demographic
Sabit wanted
change
to
in
answer.
She has to
Bengal.
fill it somewhere.
If there
You
are
have to end it
30%,
somewhere.
Javed Sabit.
Delhi has been capital for centuries and capital of all these Muslim kings. First of all, Muslim and Islam are not one thing. If you say that Islam is Muslim, then there should not have been any great Muslim musician, no Muslim poet. In Quran, there is a complete ayat against the poets. That poets are very dangerous people. But Muslims have been poets. They have been great musicians. Islam and Muslims are two different realities. One. Point two. At the time of partition, Muslims were in minority in Delhi, which was the capital of these kings. If there was such a conversion at such a large scale, there should not have been minority in the capital. It's a myth. Yes, of course, it must have happened. It happens even today.
Are you also denying?
No, I'm not denying. There must
Are
be
you,
some-
are
yeah.
you also denying the fact
Yeah.
that Justice J.S. Verma, the Supreme Court judge, called Hinduism a way of life, and Abrahamic religions are proselytizing, which Hinduism does not set out to be? Are you in denial about that fact?
What's the question? I
The
couldn't get it.
nature of the faiths,
Arey bhai,
Abrahamic
all of
religions,
them are-
because they
yeah.
believe in a codified sort of book, are also proselytizing in impulse in a way that Hinduism has not been, precisely because of its big tent nature.
देखिए, let us. I didn't want to get into that about any particular religion. whether
But
Islam
here we
or
are, you've all got
Judaism.
into it.
But now, if you come to the point, I'll say. Hinduism has two sides. One is de soto, another is de facto. De soto is philosophy, deep thinking, great literature, great language, and so on. That is de soto, and that was only for the higher class. That was for the Brahman and the Uchakoti. That de facto is the caste system.
Okay.
And the fact is that people who are so upset what Aurangzeb did have never regretted and never repented what they have done for thousands of years with Shudra.
Okay.
Oh, please.
Okay, okay.
Javed,
We'll come to
stop
caste.
this.
We'll come to caste. Can I ask
This
Ruchir a
is-
question just because he's been waiting and then I have...
Even an atheist like Javed will rise in defense of Islam on the basis of lies. I mean, you're not speaking history. There's enough evidence
Which history?
contrary
History
to
written by
everything
somebody
you are saying, which
Okay.
is the proselytizing, the conversion impulse, which is how it has spread globally from this tiny...
Okay, let's park that question. And I did ask you that question and I will come back to it. I have a different question for you. Because... yeah, but your mic, I don't know what is with the mics.
Yeah, you mentioned this statistics about,
I'm just quoting from Qureshi Saab's book.
yeah, and I think that's a very fair thing that which you suggested, that in this case that the quantum of Hindus was marginally greater, percentage
Yeah.
was marginally greater than that of
1
Muslim.
point.
Yeah, 1 point.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Or
is the
0.1%
thing.
point, actually, yeah.
In that case, why is there any opposition to a uniform civil code?
And we'll come to that.
Why?
I think
I
that
mean, isn't that a level playing field?
think-
No, but a more reliable book on demography is written
And besides
by
that, let me tell you,
J.K.
this is not
Bajaj
1%.
and
Can you all
M.D.
not-
This is
you all
not
not speak
0.1%.
together? Can
This
you-
is the 0.1% of 81%.
Yeah,
people.
whatever the
yes,
statistics.
yes.
No, Javed, whatever the
Minus 1%.
statistics.
Yeah.
One
So
minute.
it means
Madhu
Lakhs
and
of-
Javed
What-
Swapan now, please.
whatever the
Please,
statistics,
please.
I think it just confirms the need for
I
it.
think there's a very important conversation to be had about the Uniform Civil Code, and the idea of a secular law, and secularists should support it, in my opinion. But hang
What you
on,
mean is
hang-
non-denominational.
can I come to, can we just get Ruchir? Can we? Javed sahab, ek minute. Ruchir, two
Yes.
questions for you. You stood
Yeah,
there.
can people hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. 1 minute, guys. You stood there and you said, I don't accept this verdict on the mandir, right?
I don't.
1 minute, let me ask my question. You basically effectively reject a verdict from the Supreme Court. Let me complete my question before you answer. You reject a decision of the highest court of the land, which to me is the guardian of our constitution, which I still believe is the holiest of our books, or should be. Question one. Question two. There are other countries that you referenced. You spoke about England, right?
Yeah.
There's great diversity in England de facto, as Javed Saab would say, but there's definitely the Church of England that is the guiding sort of seat of religion
Yeah.
when it comes to the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Is there a double speak there that we are perfectly willing as Indians to look at other countries in the
No.
West that are underpinned by shades of religion, but when it comes to our own, we are very uncomfortable because it's not what we've been used to?
Can I
Yes,
answer the
please.
second question first? Because
Yes.
it's actually, both are easy to answer. Not easy, but simple to answer for me. First of all, it is shameful and an anomaly that the King of England is the head of the church, and the church and state are married still technically, officially in England. And a lot of people are trying to overturn that, to get rid of that. They are almost saying, okay, we will put up with the monarchy, but the monarchy has no rule. I mean, there are people who want to get rid of the monarchy as well. They have a very good argument. But there's also people who actually say the Church of England has no right
But does it not
to
tell
be
you
a state
that
religion.
diversity, I guess what Swapan was
No.
arguing that,
So what I'm saying is, I
that
am
both
not.
can
I am
coexist.
not saying that it's great in England that they have, and I'm going to turn a blind eye to it. I
Okay.
think it's an outrage.
Okay.
And the blasphemy laws that the Church of England has brought into place are being used by Muslim fundamentalists to attack people like Rushdie, and by other religious fundamentalists to attack people like there was this Sikh play called Bezdi, and all these people,
Yeah.
all these blasphemy laws, which thanks to the poison of Ayatollah Khomeini has spread all over the world, are being misused because of the blasphemy provisions in the Church of England nexus in
Okay,
England.
that's-
Okay, so that's one thing. I have great respect for the Supreme Court. I completely stand by their judgment that what happened in December 1992 in Ayodhya was a criminal act and should be treated as such. And I followed that judgment of the Supreme Court. The following judgment of the Supreme Court is illogical and does not sit
But
with
how
their
can you
previous
pick
judgment.
and choose which judgments you follow?
Because the one that comes first and the one that makes more
That's not
sense.
true, right?
So
One that makes more sense.
Gay rights were not
Logical
decriminalized.
evidence.
Hang on.
No.
Gay rights were not
That's completely
decriminalized
false.
for-
That's a false argument. Whoa.
No,
Wait. How? What?
Ruchir, you can have many reasons to disagree with the Supreme Court verdict, but you can't say what came earlier is the one you'll go by.
No, it's
Well,
not
why
just
am I
about
disagreeing
the
with the
Supreme
Supreme Court
Court
verdict?
judgment.
Hang on, Madhu, let him
Supreme
finish
Court
his
can
point.
go wrong first time or second or third
Yes,
time.
yes.
However, it's about plethora of archaeological evidence
Okay, none
and
of us are
historic
archaeologists.
evidence
It
So
that
doesn't
we
lakhs
don't
of
know.
matter.
temples
It
were
doesn't matter
destroyed.
if there was a temple there. I don't
To
care.
you, but to
No,
many
to-
others
it should
does.
not matter to
Well,
us
then
as
Babri
Indians.
Masjid demolition or the Dhancha demolition should not have mattered.
Right.
Go convince.
Okay.
No, wait.
Go
All
convince
right.
In that case, let us go to every Buddhist stupa that has been destroyed
That's
by a
a
Hindu
lie.
temple
That's a
and move
Ramila
that Hindu
Thapar
temple from there
bakwas
and
lie.
reinstate the Hindu
Okay.
You're
stupa.
talking
No, it's not
absolute
Okay,
that.
nonsense.
Ruchir
You're
and
the
Madhu.
most
Sorry,
ill
you can't
Keep it
create your
civil.
own fictional
Please keep
history.
it
I'm sorry,
civil.
Madhu.
I'm not.
Please keep it
Please.
civil here.
You are.
Please
Okay, go
keep
ahead.
it civil.
You
Okay,
do it.
hang on. Everyone take a pause and take a deep breath.
Deep breath.
Madhu,
wait, I'm answering your question about
Acha,
Supreme
okay,
Court.
you complete
Sorry.
your, okay.
Everyone's spoken a lot.
Okay,
Sorry,
all right.
one
Go
second.
ahead, complete your point.
The Supreme Court made a decision. I cannot look at the motives of the Supreme Court, but I remember the atmosphere of fear and trepidation at the time that decision came through. And I share with millions of people in this country how appalled we were
Okay.
that that decision was made by the Gogoi bench. And the fact that they can then go and have a slap-up dinner afterwards. Okay,
Okay, let
so
me bring
I
in
am saying
Swapan now.
this.
Yeah.
And the earlier decision, and the decision made at the time of the Babri demolition, that all the status quo ante at 1947-15
Yes,
will be
1991
maintained.
Places of Worship Act,
And
yeah.
ये अभी झांकी है, ये मथुरा
Acha,
काशी
now let me
बाकी
bring
है.
in Swapan.
That's
Swapan,
happening
Swapan.
because you
What is
change
sacred?
you
Madhu,
change the rules
Madhu,
all the
I
time.
have to look right of stage, right of center, and ask my
You can
questions.
hear what I'm saying.
Acha, Ruchir and Madhu, please. Swapan, it's a very important point. I think we are allowed to disagree with Supreme Court verdicts without disparaging another person's faith, whatever that faith may be. Point one. But the Supreme Court judgment that gave us the Ram Mandir said in that same judgment that the Places of Worship Act 1991 was necessary, and I'm quoting verbatim from the judgment as I remember it, to preserve the secular polity of India, i.e. the status outside of Ayodhya, whatever was the status at the time of independence, must be held in status quo. Then the same court actually doesn't intervene on Gyan Vapi and allows the legal proceedings to go forward. Are we then saying that the Supreme Court was flawed in what it said when it gave us the mandir, or is it flawed now?
Firstly, as far as the Places of Worship Act was concerned, it clearly exempted Ayodhya from its purview.
Yes.
So the first thing is that
Yes.
that doesn't come in. Now the issue of the Gyan Vapi, I don't know exactly what we are talking at present, is a continuation of a worship which had been there right till 1992, when it was stopped.
Correct.
So that is the question which the lawyers
grey
and the
area,
jurists will
legally,
have to
yes,
sort out.
yes.
But larger question, what is the rationale
Yes.
behind the Supreme Court verdict? Now, it is true that this is not, strictly speaking, a question of law. Just like the Golaknath judgment, which laid down the basic structure rule, was passed by one judge. So, in another sort of circumstances, it could have gone the other way. Here, although you had a unanimous judgment, I would say that the Supreme Court was fully mindful that there is a sentiment all over India which wanted it this way, and that the only way in meaningful dispute resolution could be done was by giving the verdict that they gave. How far this is law or common sense or adjudication is a matter which I think is for the experts to go on, and I believe that's really the case.
Okay, Javed sir, before you respond,
No,
may
no,
I-
first of
Acha.
all, Supreme Court or any court cannot and should not give decision what is the sentiment in the society. What is logical, what is rational, what is proved should be respected.
But are you
are
denying
saying that
the
there was a
archaeological
sentiment.
evidence?
Sorry.
Forget
sorry.
the court. Forget the
No,
court.
no, even
Are
if there
you
is a law,
denying the
you have
archaeological
to-
evidence?
We are not-
But that is important. I mean, mountains of
मधु एक
archaeological
सेकंड
evidence.
मधु एक सेकंड जब आप बोलेंगी तब आप बोलेंगी जब मैं बोलूंगा तब भी आप बोलेंगी तो मैं कब
आप ही
बोलूंगा
बोल रहे हैं.
अच्छा, आप बोलिए. बोलिए.
उनका क्या किस्सा है कि anybody who disagrees with her is a liar. All over the world, Rumila Thapar is a respected, she has an international reputation. She is a respected historian. But she's a liar because she doesn't agree with Madhu Kishore.
No, she's been my
Okay,
teacher,
okay.
and I can
Anybody,
tell you that
you take
she's been
all the,
challenged.
you
on
take
Okay, can
all
we
the,
not speak over each
you
other,
take
please?
all the internationally respected historians of India. All of them are called leftists. All of them are called liars. All of them are called pro-Muslim or pro-this or pro-that. All of them. You take one historian which is respected all over the world. And then you do one thing. You go to the world and take any respected historian, not hired by British Empire. Take any historian and read them.
Okay, Javed sir, can I
तो
ask you?
देखो ये सब ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा. मैं आप जो बोल रहे हैं ज्ञानवापी हो या मथुरा हो, I know the fate of those mosques. वो वही होना है जो पहले हुआ था. वो आपको अभी बता देता हूँ.
अच्छा, there is one argument before I
ये
come to...
सब बातें चलती
सवाल
रहेंगी.
पूछ लीजिए.
फेट कंप्लीट है वो दोनों मॉस्क का. मेरी तरफ से दुनिया में कोई मॉस्क, कोई टेम्पल, कोई चर्च ना रहे, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. I never go there and I don't believe in them. मगर ये जो खेल है, ये खेल दोबारा होगा. वही चार रास्ते में जा रहा है. उसी रास्ते में जा रहा है और वही होना है. And it is all political. पूरे हिंदुस्तान में people, you are giving food, ration to 80 crore people. It means 80 crore people are living on this charity. In that country, the basic concern of people are this mandir or that temple. How is it possible?
Okay, can I ask you a question? As an atheist,
Yeah.
you are obviously, Swapan and Madhu would argue, not able to understand the sentiment of the same people who may or may not be living on that ration. There have been emotional responses of electorates globally to points of religious identity, civilizational history. If history were irrelevant, we wouldn't be talking about Confederate statues coming down in the United States of America. We cannot sit here and say the answer to everything is to build a hospital, because we will be called deracinated liberals who are out of touch in our little bubble with the sentiments of a large mass of people. How do you respond to that?
Arey bhai, there have been different times, and in different times, people have practiced in a different way. Now, we had a great tradition in India, Ashwamedh Yagna. Ashwamedh Yagna, the big, powerful kings used to do that there used to be yagna, and they will leave a horse. Wherever the horse will go, they will say, this is our land, and they will claim that land. Now, can you imagine USA leaving a horse in Middle East after doing a yagna in the embassy and leaving a horse? क्या अश्वमेध यज्ञ हम क्या जहाँ जहाँ जाएगा वो हमारा land है.
Caricature.
It was at that time it was right.
What a caricature.
That time-
Factually incorrect caricature. I'll tell you why. Ashwamedh Yagya, yes, was about a great samrat wanting allegiance of smaller kings. The whole idea was without war, without bloodshed,
They will
those
surrender.
who accept a certain samrat, like Yudhishthir,
And
there's
they
no
don't.
war.
And they don't.
No,
if they
wait.
don't,
Oh, if they don't, then there is war. But here, wait a minute. No, but the point is you have a choice to accept or not accept. But the manner in which the Islamists, I mean, you may be an atheist, but you are a hardcore Islamist in the way that Jinnah was. He was a pork-eating Muslim.
How? What is the basis to make that comment?
No, because he. What
What is the
shocks
basis?
me? What
Because I
shocks
disagree
me?
with her.
What
Anybody who
shocks
disagrees.
me? What shocks me is that you will deny the existence of lakhs of destroyed temples over which mosques have been built, over which maqbaras have been built. You would deny it. And if Hindus feel hurt that here was one of our most sacred worshipping space, the birthplace of Ram or Krishna, you don't even want us the right to feel hurt. That's your bloody secularism. And this bloody constitution that you
Let's
one
be
second.
civil.
That is my
Last
Hinduism,
Let's
I'm
be
sorry.
civil.
You
Let's
don't
be
have the right to feel hurt.
Let's
That
be
is my
civil.
Hinduism.
I'm
Let's
saying
be
one
civil.
second.
Let's
The
be civil.
Constitution.
I don't
being
think we need to
perfectly
use
civil.
The
words that I'm telling you.
Constitution
bloody
is
secular.
one
One
second.
minute,
Let me
Ruchir.
finish this
Eight
sentence.
minutes. Okay,
we
The
get it.
Constitution, you say, is secular fabric. The fact of the matter is, the state of India controls Hindu temples. It takes all the money from Hindu temples. We have no control over temples. Is that secularism? It does not control
What was your
mosques.
problem?
It does not
May I ask a
control
question now?
churches. Why should
Okay,
the state...
that's a fair question.
Why
That's a
should
fair
the
question.
state be
It is
controlling
a fair
temples?
question, and I will put it to the panel. I have
No,
one
no, let
small...
me- may I?
1 minute. Everybody now has to listen to me. Madhu, 30 seconds, because I have to come to the others. You mentioned Ishwar Allah Tero Naam as a problem. It's the bhajan that Mahatma Gandhi mobilized the Dandi March and gave this country our independence. What is your problem with Gandhi's favorite bhajan?
No, I don't have a problem. Get Muslims to say it and believe it. And stop conversions. If there is same, Ishwar and Allah are same,
Okay.
stop conversions and I'm happy.
Okay.
Then, and the original bhajan was not Ishwar Allah Tero Naam. That's Gandhi's version.
Yes, of course it's
Fine,
Gandhi's version.
Fine, I'm happy if you stop conversions. If it's all about being same, there should be no need for conversions.
Okay, Ruchir.
That's all.
Ruchir, take this question, then Javed Saab.
Which question?
The question that as you were walking up stage, are you in denial that historically there have been temples destroyed on the top of which mosques have been built? Or are you saying it's irrelevant? Which position are you taking?
It's irrelevant.
Because?
Because what we forget is a lot of the temples were destroyed by Hindu kings attacking other kings. That's not anything that doesn't suit you is not a lie, Madhu. I'm sorry. No. Stop interrupting.
You
no,
have
no.
to give me a list, and I'm willing
I'm
on
going-
a proper
Look,
debate
on-
on this.
Okay, let me read out some.
Please.
Let
Stop.
me read
Yeah,
out
I
some.
mean-
Let me read out
He had a
some.
ministry.
Yeah, but okay, carry on. You carry on.
Yeah, you go ahead. I mean,
No, you
I'm
carry
sorry.
on. You are saying your argument is also a theoretical argument.
I'm not allowed to finish a sentence.
I
So
am
what is
trying
my
to allow
argument?
you
My
to
argument
finish.
is this. Here is my argument, okay? Let me just be very, very clear about it. For me, my religion is a personal matter. And the best of what I've seen of religion in this country has always ultimately been a personal matter. It's not a collective matter. Okay? And the reason for that is my Hinduism is different from her Hinduism, is different from his, is different from hers. There are differences. And it's those differences that that give us an individuality of Hinduism, which is something that other religions have had to fight for. Christianity, people have arrived at later. We've always had it. And that is being destroyed right now by this kind of thinking. And I am therefore against it. The reason for it is because a temple, when you talk about Ram's birthplace and Krishna's birthplace, that is deeply offensive to me.
Why is it deeply offensive?
These are creatures that are beyond our understanding. It's not a birth date and a death date. Is there a birth date? Do you have a death date? Do you know where his chitta was conducted when he ascended to heaven? Can you tell me that, please? Can you tell me when the Pandavas died and which part of the mountains they died? It's recorded. Recorded by who? What nonsense?
Are Mahabharat gives you exact dates of
And
what's
places.
happening. There's
Right.
chronology.
Yeah, and you can
if
tell where
haven't
Ram
read
died.
these
Where did Ram ascend to heaven? You tell me, please.
Okay. I think we are getting into
Birthplace.
territory
What
that we should avoid.
birthplace?
Jal Samadhi.
I
it's not ascending
really
to heaven.
useful,
There
very
is no
convenient, Jal
Okay, Ruchir
Samadhi.
and Madhu, I hate shouting, but I have to shout
Jal
now to
Samadhi.
come this side of the
Ram's
stage.
birthplace. Ram
Acha.
cannot have a birthplace. It's a nonsense.
अरे मगर मुझे भी तो बोलने दो
Okay, Ruchir just said Ram doesn't have a birthplace.
देखिए,
cannot.
नहीं, नहीं,
Krishna and
नहीं,
Ram
let-
cannot
no,
have
no, no, no,
birthplaces.
no,
Oh my
no,
God,
no, let's
okay.
not get into that. That
We
is
should
wrong. I
not,
don't agree
because
with
we're
that.
casting
The
aspersions
fact
on
is,
other people's
there
faith.
have been
If
over-
faith
I'm
is
challenging
personal,
the
we
faith.
should
It's
not
my
judge
faith as
another
well.
person's faith.
It's my faith as
please,
well.
Please listen.
Okay.
So keep your
You
faith.
see,
Don't
I have
dictate
got
to me.
let
Don't
me-
dictate to me because your
Madhu,
faith
not
makes
dictating
no
to
sense.
you.
Madhu,
dictating
Madhu,
Okay,
me.
Ruchir and Madhu,
एक-
please.
एक second.
Please.
I had just started telling something which was cut in between and misunderstood. I said there were different periods in history where there were different traditions and there were acceptable things. The fact is that to say that no temple was broken is a lie.
Yes.
Of course it was.
Yes.
Of course. Like
So
there
no
was
one
a
is saying
time-
that.
Please let me complete the point. Then you will know what is my perspective. There was a time when Protestants and Catholics were burning each other on stakes. There were times when it was a glory of a king if he would attack another country. There have, in different periods, there have been different moralities and there are acceptable
So
norms
should
and
those wrongs
non-acceptable
be
norms.
rectified?
And we have to look at them
Javed Saab,
historically.
should those wrongs, if you accept that it's a
You
lie
cannot-
to say, should those wrongs be
Should the Protestants of Europe count how many Protestants were burned by Catholics, and Catholics should count how many Catholics were burned by Protestants, and have the
It's
count
still
set.
happening.
Is it possible? It is happening. You are 81% people,
Pakistan
and
is-
then okay. So what do we
ISIS.
do? It is not
What
our
are they
country.
doing to Yazdis even today?
bhai,
But we're
It's
talking-
ethnic cleansing.
You are ethnic cleansing they are doing.
Javed
Look
Saab.
at them. Ethnic cleansing सिर्फ हिंदू की नहीं है वो हर एक की एक दूसरे की कर रहे हैं. Look at them. Are they an example that we should think and modify our attitudes?
5 minutes?
What are
Okay,
we talking-
Javed Saab, before I come to Swapnil.
Same way, same
Javed Saab,
way.
एक छोटा सा सवाल, छोटा
नहीं,
सा
मैं
सवाल.
अभी आपके सवाल-
आपने कहा कि हमें मानना पड़ेगा that मंदिर डिस्ट्रॉय हुए हैं, राइट? आपने कहा.
हमें ये भी मानना पड़ेगा कि हजारों साल तक शूद्रों पे जुल्म हुआ है.
जी, दोनों चीजें
और
सच
आज
है.
भी होता है.
बिल्कुल, दोनों चीजें सच हैं. अब मेरे दोनों सवाल में एक हिस्टोरिकल रॉन्ग को राइट करने की कोशिश है. The caste system, affirmative action exists precisely to correct this historical institutional discrimination, and we support it. Now my question to you is, what is your opinion on these sacred spaces that Swapan spoke about, maybe 2 or 3, that the devout Hindu believes in as to be sacred? Should there be a historical correction of what happened? That is my question.
How is it possible?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
How is it possible? You see, Germany was bombarding even London and had conquered France. Today they have a common market. Today they have common currency. Where are we? Within our country. We are talking of 500 or 600 or 700 years ago. This is what had happened. And every Muslim in this country is responsible for it.
Okay.
What are we doing? An auto rickshaw wala in Ahmedabad is actually the son of Babar. वो बेचारा ऑटो रिक्शा वाला है. ये जो mindset है, hating people in wholesale is wrong. There were some people who were wrong. There were some people who were right. Even today, there are some people who are wrong. To turn communities into monoliths is wrong. In every community, all kind of people exist. At any given time, they existed.
Yeah.
Akbar did not have to win 24 election. What was the need for him to get Mahabharata translated and sent to all the Central Asian countries? Why? Why he had a coin on Ram Navami, which is available, you can Google it, that Ram and Sita will be on it. He used to take out a coin on Ram Navami. Why? Why? Why Muslim League and Jamaat Islami hate Shah Jahan and Akbar and Jahangir? I'll suggest a book to you written by a Jamaat Islami man, published by their publishing house, Hindustan mein Islam, Dawat aur Jihad. And they have told that how these Muslim kings had sold their soul to Hindus for power and how they backstabbed Islam. Particularly kings like Akbar and Jahangir and Shah. There were few good kings like Aurangzeb and like, there was one I didn't know, that was in the time of Kabir, Tughlaq. Firoz Tughlaq was a very good, so I came to know about Firoz Tughlaq also through that, because obviously our beliefs are mirror image, exactly the opposite.
Right.
So fact is that to think a Muslim who doesn't believe that Chandragupta was his ancestor or Ashok was in his ancestor is wrong.
Let me...
At the same time, any Hindu who thinks that Akbar or Jahangir were not his ancestors is wrong.
Okay. Let me give Swapan the last word with two questions of my own.
I've hardly spoken.
Okay, why don't you add a comment and then I'll
Let
give
Swapan
Swapan...
speak
No,
first,
no, just go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead,
Let
Ruchir.
Swapan-
Go ahead.
Let Swapan.
Okay, so my question to both of you is actually kind of the same. Where do we go from here? We're at a point where there is clearly a political, there's a dominant political thought. I don't know if it's a dominant religious thought, but there's a dominant political thought endorsed by, so far, our democratic system, right? Which is looking at this idea of Hindu identity and the political Hindu. But even the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat said, we cannot go looking for a shivling under every mosque. Where does this, is there a Lakshman Rekha?
Yeah, I think firstly, let me compliment Javed for what he said just now. I think the question really he asked was, why is it that 500 years 500 years after the incident, why are we preoccupied with issues of mosques and temples rather than debating, let's say, Viksit Bharat? Okay. Why? It's a relevant question. And I think to get an answer to that, we have to look at people who are exactly what Javed Akhtar is not. People who have denied consistently that there were certain wrongs which were perpetuated on the Hindus over the years, over the centuries. By glossing over that, you create a degree of resentment and a backlash. You create a backlash when some people like we heard in this platform, say that their personal Hinduism is the only Hinduism that is enlightened and worth considering, that anyone else's idea of faith is too backward and retrograde and probably obscurantist. It's that condescension, which was also marked by a great degree of elite entitlement, which today has led to a situation where the English-speaking elite finds itself beleaguered and on the retreat. One cannot be divorced from the other. The assertion of people who want a Hindu identity is directly linked with their desire to overturn an order which they found was iniquitous. That Hindus could not manage their own shrines and temples and educational institutions, whereas minorities had that right. Where was that level playing field? And if this uneven field was secularism, as happened on the question of the Uniform Civil Code, their answer was, well, we don't want it. And I think that's behind it. Now the question comes, how long can we go on this? Yes, there is a letting off of steam. And that letting off of steam, I think, is taking a positive dimension. What we found during the inauguration of the Ram Temple was that there was not a single riot anywhere. There was not a single way in which Muslims were told to go to Pakistan. It was, yes, it was a triumphalist moment, but it was a triumphalist movement which was not directed against someone else. And I think that's really where we come to Mohan Bhagwat's thing. It's important that you recognize that the Gyan, what is called the Gyanvapi, has an importance because of the space, because of the mythology, because of the well, and the shivling which was next to it and which was uprooted. There is also the history of Aurangzeb, which was also there in Mathura. I'm glad Javed recognizes it. Of course, Javed said, what can we do about it 500 years later? And that's an important question, which I think needs a logical answer.
And the logical answer
But
is?
I think the recognition is very important. The recognition is very important because I think once you, one of the things I saw on 6th December in Ayodhya was that there was a huge deal of antipathy towards the media. And when I asked some people as to why you, so het up about the media, they said, kya likhte hai un log? That insensitivity was something which they think. I think today we've passed that stage of insensitivity. I think we are far more appreciative and at least responsive to these things. And I think, once we get onto the track of rapid economic development, many of these issues will not assume the primacy which they sometimes seem to be doing. But maybe I'm being unduly
I want to
optimistic.
ask a question.
Just a
One-line
minute.
question
Okay,
from Javed and also. I'm saying, forget what happened in the past. I'm talking about today if you're looking towards solutions. Are you willing to take a clear stand against conversions? Because if we have to coexist as equals, then there's no space for conversions. Are you willing to say no conversions?
I mean, the
Sorry,
constitution.
you'd
Javed
asked
sir,
me the question earlier. I'm going to continue with
Okay.
that. First of all, let me quickly correct.
I'll come to you, Javed, after Ruchir. Yeah.
Let me quickly correct Chopin. I never said that mine is the only kind of faith. What I meant and what I was made very clear is that there are millions like me who believe in a different kind of Hinduism, and it's by no means am I the only one. I share this with a huge number of other people living in this territory of what we call Bharat, India, whatever. okay? And the weaponization, plasticization, toxification of certain kind of thinking in the name of Hinduism, which is called Hindutva, and which has been done in North India and in Gujarat to a certain degree, and has spread in little bits in other parts of the country and has been pushed back. That cannot be the only definition of either religion or Hindutva or Sanatan Dharma or any of it. And how do we go forward? I think we're going to suffer. We're going to not be rid of this problem, this kind of toxicity for some time to come, maybe 10, 15 years, okay? But it will go in an uneven way. Lots of bits will fall off. There will be a lot of trouble. People will be hurt. We will suffer as a society and as a country, but eventually we will be rid of it, okay? And that will not mean that there will be no, that Hindus won't be there, Muslims won't be there, Christians won't be there. We will be here. And faith will survive and outlive this kind of damaging misuse, political misuse of faith.
Do you want to respond to Swapan's point on the inconsistency in the secular, secular argument on uniform civil code or state management of temples?
It's not from a position of privilege or some elitism, which is Swapan's favorite accusation. Even as the BJP occupies all of Lutyens Delhi, he talks about how the Lutyens Delhi is elite. Khan Market, Tukde Gan, Khan Market is run over by BJP MPs and their entourages right now.
No, but the substance of
the point is not this business of elite. Who is the elite? The
what
mass
about
of
the
India,
double speak or the lack of consistency?
About?
If you believe in secular law, that should apply to your support for, let's say, the Uniform Civil Code.
Okay.
Why should men and women be different under the orthodoxy of any religion?
Fine. Here's my answer to it. My answer to it is very simple. I do not trust this government, which has distorted and misused every good-sounding principle to their own purposes to bring in a uniform civil code.
But of course,
a proper uniform civil code is needed, but not the one that is designed and architected by Mr. Modi and company. Don't trust them. Okay? A proper GST is needed. Don't trust this.
Show me the draft.
Show you the draft.
Show me
of
the
what?
draft of the civil code you're saying has been drafted.
No,
Where
it has
is
to be discussed. It has to be discussed. There has to be a debate around it. There has to be a debate around it.
Javed sir, my last question to you is this. Secularism...
May I just say one thing?
You people have redone the laws and made them more colonial than they were under the British. Why should we trust you with any legislation?
When you're talking about what is the elite?
You have a majority of people who are like, unpad and completely use bad language in parliament, who are completely mad.
Unpad should not matter.
Actually,
Unpad should not
but
matter.
then,
That is elite.
Someone asked me about elite.
Yeah.
I was just telling Javed that, Javed, do you know that in most of the clubs of Calcutta, you won't be allowed to enter? Because of this dress code. You know the outrage in Barkha and I, we went into the same college. There's a WhatsApp group there. The outrage that happened there because the armed forces,
In the naval mess, were
the
in
naval mess,
traditional
they
attire.
changed it. They allowed kurta pajamas to be allowed in. Now that's the thing.
Oh,
Yes.
please.
That's the sense
Okay.
of, that's the archaic imbecility which has often been there.
Between all of these extreme things that we've heard all around today, can we end this conversation with certain things that we might all agree on? That there is a kind of decolonization needed, I think we'd all agree. That there should be consistency in our models of secularism, I think we'd all agree. That if certain religious groups can manage their places of worship, all religious groups should be allowed to do. That if men and women should be equal under X religion, they should be equal under Y religion. Surely, there
And
are common
conversions.
sense.
Take a stand on conversion.
Okay, that's for Javed Saab to take, because there are also Dalits.
Why
There
not
are
you?
also Dalits who
Why
convert
not
to
you?
Buddhism in mass
Freedom of
conversion
religion
ceremonies.
means you can convert. There should be no law
All
against
right, Javed
conversion.
Saab,
What's wrong with
Madhu
conversion?
has asked a question. I'll let Javed respond. Conversions are at the heart of this belief that there is a proselytizing impulse and this perception of demographic change and so on. Javed Saab, last word.
My aunt, who was 93 years old, she died a few years back, one day asked me, if you have such passionate dislike of the religion in which you were born, given a chance, which religion you would have preferred? I said, you are asking me that if you had decided to commit suicide, which way you would prefer to commit suicide? I mean, I am against the idea of religion. One is as stupid as another. The fact is, beside that, you may or may not like Madhu. Note one thing. Where is the leakage? Why in a country where 80% people are Hindus? Why where first 500 business houses belong to Hindus? Why most of the bureaucrats and the powerful politicians are Hindu? The national wealth, 90% national wealth must be in the hands of the Hindu. Why people are becoming Christian or Muslim, if there are some? Why? It is stupid. It is illogical. You want to be on the winner's side. The fact is the leakage is within your system because of your caste system. You don't,
What do you say on caste?
you don't, just have, no, please. I'll complete my statement, then you contradict it
Okay.
and call me a liar. The fact is that you will not let him enter the temple. And then you
That's-
get very upset if you
Which
go to the church or temple.
Which temple they can't enter? Name one.
Are
Name one today. Name one today.
Jagannath?
No, it's not true. It's not true.
अच्छा,
Only
only-
Hindus. All Hindus can enter.
Okay,
क्या
okay.
बात करते हैं आप?
अच्छा,
कुछ भी?
अभी-
कुछ भी?
Are you saying that there is no temple where
There is no temple
Scheduled
where, no, there is not a single
Arey,
temple.
I'll
In
give you a
practice-
video where a widow was thrown out. They pulled her hair and brought her
Okay,
out.
okay.
Please.
So वो तो जाने
Can I-
दो.
Please,
यानी even
please.
today in our
Take a
village-
stand
अरे
on
भाई,
conversion.
Let me ask you a
आप
question.
अगर
Sir,
you
can I briefly
no,
do-
let me complete it. They आप बीच में बोलते हैं.
I mean, there's
No, don't interrupt me. मुझे oppose करना तुम, मगर मुझे पूरी बात तो कहने दो. फैक्ट ये है कि ये कहना कि उनके साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन रूरल इंडिया में नहीं है विल बी रॉन्ग.
अच्छा इस्लाम में तो है ही नहीं ना, सब ठीक है ना?
अरे इस्लाम
है ना?
मैं तो
तो
सबसे ज्यादा
है ना
अरे,
इस्लाम में
again you are wrong.
discrimination.
I dislike Islam and I disown
That's
it.
not the
It's never defended Islam. What are you talking
जब
about?
मैं ये
I'm
बोल
sorry.
रहा हूँ तो तुम
I'm
इस्लाम
saying
की मुझे
take
क्या
a
तू
मिलता
stand
है?
on
It's like if you
conversion.
criticize the
Okay.
BJP, you
Take a
must love
stand.
Rahul
Madhu,
Gandhi.
एक
What
second.
nonsense.
अच्छा.
एक सेकंड
Nonsense.
ये वेपन मुझ पे नहीं
ये आर्ग्यूमेंट करने
चलेगा.
का तरीका
Okay,
नहीं
we
है.
have to start closing.
No,
Now
Islam में
it's
तो
past
है ही
9
नहीं.
o'clock.
Why can't you complete? Let
Yes.
me complete my
Can we
point.
let him complete, please? Yes.
तो सीधी बात ये है कि set your own home right first. There is a tremendous bias with the low caste even today. तुम्हारे एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स आते हैं मैट्रिमोनियल के तो उसमें कास्ट लिखी होती है कौन सी कास्ट चाहिए कौन सी कास्ट
अच्छा,
नहीं चाहिए.
Madhu, the
अभी-
brief question, we
Please,
really have
let
to
me
end.
complete.
Yeah.
तो बात ये है कि मुझे तो कोई कन्वर्जन से इंटरेस्टेड हूँ मैं नहीं, इसलिए कि एक बेवकूफ़ी से निकल के आदमी दूसरी बेवकूफ़ी में जाए तो उससे मुझे क्या इंटरेस्ट हो सकता है.
Okay.
अगर आपको परेशानी है कि 81% कहीं घट के 18% ना हो जाए तो आप ये सब करेक्शंस कीजिए ना. आप ये तो करते नहीं हैं.
Okay.
और फिर आप नाराज. दूसरे के एक बात थी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड. ही इज टोटली राइट. द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैज नॉट गिवन सो एनी ड्राफ्ट. And my complaint is this, that you are talking of uniform civil code and you are not giving any draft. What is ridiculous that some state is having a uniform civil code. So every state will have their own uniform civil code. How uniform it will be? It is stupid.
Yeah.
And the government of India, the center should tell them to shut up and not to do this. Their silence is wrong. Besides that, a fair, reasonable, uniform civil code should be implemented, should be brought. Some people will get upset about it, let them be. You cannot make any law which will please everybody.
Okay,
Sorry.
wait.
These same people who oppose uniform civil code in India, how do they go to USA and settle there? There is uniform civil code there. How do they go to England or Australia? So this will not be tolerated.
Okay.
India needs a uniform civil code, but not a dishonest code, where you will push Muslims and keep on that undivided Hindu family. That's not possible.
Okay. This debate will carry on. It is impossible to find things to agree on, but hopefully we found one or two. Thank you. This wasn't easy to moderate. Everybody shouted a lot. I had to shout as well, so apologies. Everybody raised their level beyond the norm. Let's say thank you to Madhu Kishwar, to Ruchi Joshi, to Javed Akhtar, to Swapan Das Gupta, and to our very patient audience. that has sat here for more than 2 hours. I would say only in Kolkata could you get an audience to sit for over 2 hours and engage on every point made, whether in agreement or disagreement. So I have been told not that this.
The Constitution has been amended more than 100 times. There's nothing sacred about it.
I don't think we can
And
say
it
there's
is
nothing
the
sacred about the
same
Constitution.
document that the British had drafted
Okay.
by way of, in 1930. So, as a history student, a student of history, I say the Constitution obviously is not so perfect, which is why it has been.
Okay, I'm afraid your sentiment is noted, ma'am. Thank you for it. And I think we have to end somewhere because this will carry on for us.
Well, I just think with the kind of heat we had on stage, spring has finally left us, and I think summer is here. But thank you very much, first of all, to Ms. Barkha Dutt for moderating the session. A big hand for her, please. Thank you, Javed Saab. It's an absolute privilege and an honor for us to have you here. Thank you, Professor Madhu Kishwar. Thank you, Mr. Dasgupta, and thank you, Mr. Ruchit Joshi. A big thank you to the Telegraph and to the JIS group for supporting us, and to Mrs. Malavika Banerjee, without whom we couldn't have held this event. May I request Ms. Jaspreet Kaur, Director of the JIS group, to come and felicitate the panelists and the moderator, please. Thank you.
First to ma'am, she has had the toughest job.
I hope there's some sympathy for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure you always said the death of journalism that is happening these days, right? And thank you so much for coming and giving us that immense knowledge. I think I love it. I'm so thankful. Let us be the bridge.
जावेद तुम्हारी तो कोच का बन
The debate is over. The debate is over.
This is not debate. This is a friendly banter. We happen to be good friends, no matter how serious our differences.
Okay. इनको पहले ठंडा करते हैं.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Hope you've enjoyed the evening. Thank you.